Is this like the biggest chunk of your day now, just constantly dealing with
It's a large part of it. I had a student who was actually having self-infliction thoughts and posted a video online of it, and it got to us. It was a result of her being bullied by other kids.
How tough is that for you being a principal and knowing that some of those kids go home and you worry about food insecurity?
It's scary to leave them. I know they're taken care of when they're in front of us.
All right. We're going to get to all of that in just a moment. But first, I want you to know how grateful I am for today's podcast sponsor, my friends at FitAF Nutrition. They are Eastern Pennsylvania's leading meal prep company. FitAF offers meals of multiple sizes for people with various health goals. And you know what I love about this company? They use high-quality ingredients like grass-fed meats, wild fish, and locally harvested produce. And all right, for you parents on the go, they even offer family meals. Go to fitafnutrition.com, place your order by Thursday at midnight, and get fresh, prepared meals delivered right to your door on Sunday.
Use code Leckey20 at checkout to get 20% off your first order of 7 meals or more.
Here we go, buddy. It's the Ryan Leckey Show.
Welcome back to another episode of the Ryan Leckey Show. Today's topic, we're tackling a whole host of stuff that is so timely for parents, for educators right now, specifically teachers. We're talking about sort of the struggles and the issues that so many schools are facing and dealing with social media and kids, cyberbullying especially, and then some. And in the hot seat with me is Principal Angela Keating, who is over West Scranton Intermediate. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here with you.
So you and we met. I gave a speech at your school, obviously, talking about sort of like what you post today follows you for the rest of your life, and then some, and some inspirational motivation I hope I left on your kids.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And you and I became like kindred spirits. I'm like,
did.
we got to connect on this because I have a lot of friends who have kids who are in elementary school, who are in middle school, and they're dealing with, social media struggles, social media bullying that's spilling outside of school and then making its way back in. It's a whole thing, and you guys are trying to navigate that. So I think let's just dive into, Angela, how long have you been the principal there?
So I've been a principal in this building for almost 3 years.
Okay.
Total 6 years.
And an educator for how long?
An educator for 24 years.
Got it. So let's talk about, cyberbullying 20 some years ago was never a thing.
No.
Right? And now it's like one of the biggest issues schools here at home and across the country are facing. So how has it really changed even over the past few years?
Absolutely. It's so crazy to think of what it was like before cell phones, before kids that were, I have 10 through 14-year-olds in my building. Before, there was no worry about kids having phones or having any access to it. Now, and we went from having, you and I had flip phones to all of this access to all internet and the easiest ways to communicate with each other that could be positive, but it makes it really easy for kids to hide behind it and just say horrible, terrible things about each other. So it spills into our buildings every single day.
Yeah, and it's not just your school we want to point out, right? The Scranton School District is among a bazillion schools across the country who are trying to navigate this and try to find this happy medium where parents can feel that their kids are safe in school. A lot of parents want their kids to have phones because of emergencies, and let's face it, there have been school shootings around the country.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? But then you're also trying to navigate, trying to teach the tricks of the trade on how to use social media and your phones for the greater good.
Yep.
And, you're dealing with cyberbullying. So how has it, really picked up? Because it's become a serious issue for a lot of schools.
It's such a balance, and, one of the program that you came to, about safe social media and using it in a positive way. And we've also attacked it we've had the U.S. Attorney's Office in and talking about some of the scary things that have happened and some of the, legal ramifications of things that kids have gotten caught up in that are just downright scary by trusting people online, or leaving your digital footprint and making sure that we're doing positive things. We unfortunately just see more of the negative parts of it. Since COVID, everything that we did has been online and behind closed doors, and we were so shut down from the whole world that somewhere along the line it became socially acceptable to just say and send out anything without really thinking about it. There's also the aspect of not being able to show your emotion through those things. So something that somebody may put out there may not be as meant to be as threatening or as nasty as it sounds, but when you just put it out there to type it and you don't hear yourself saying it, it just really affects everything. And then it affects the way kids interact with each other, even in person. They have a really hard time interacting positively and communicating with each other and adults face to face because we're so used to having phones in our hands and saying all those negative things, or even just only texting back and forth and not actually talking things through. It's really a spiral of a lot of different aspects of things. But the negativity that it brings into school and some of the problems, we are diffusing a big part of the day with cyberbullying.
Yeah, and we're gonna dive into maybe what parents can do to help with that.
Absolutely.
And sort of things you're finding, because you work with a lot of other educators who are facing similar situations. But if we look at West Scranton Intermediate, right, where you're the principal, how do you navigate phones? Are they allowed at school?
So no, we have a pretty strict policy for our intermediate schools, and our high schools have one that's slightly different. But so they're not allowed to have it during the day at all in our building, and we are very strict with that in my particular building.
Are they allowed in lockers, or just can't bring it in?
Yeah, so they can have them in their lockers. If they choose to keep it on them, it needs to be powered off and somewhere where it is not being able to be seen. So a back pocket, a front pocket where you can see it, it's not allowed. So that just needs to be out of the space, because when we're in school, it's learning time. And I always tell kids, if you have a reason you need to talk to a parent, either they'll call us or we can bring them down and we can call them together or do something so that for them to not be afraid, that make them feel like they have to have it.
Right. So you're like really dialed in, obviously, with other principals and educators.
Yep.
So when we think cyberbullying, though, what does that look like? Is it just people calling each other names? Like, how extreme has it gotten from where it started years ago to where we are in 2025?
So two of the biggest things we see are Snapchat is huge because kids think that it disappears. And as all of us know who have ever worked with law enforcement, which unfortunately we do in my world more often than not, it doesn't go away. And nothing that you put out there, it can all be found. So I think kids thought originally that was just an easy way to put something out there when they were upset with somebody, or that they would just Snapchat it to them and it would be like a threat, either fights, video fights, or a whole other thing.
What do you mean by that?
So kids love to video fights as opposed to breaking them up. So sharing those, seeing kids out in the community, we get fights. I would have parents at my door with the fight in their hand before we would be able to even address it. That would happen in the morning. So TikTok and Snapchat that has all of these options to see things so quickly and post them so quickly. And for some reason, kids are seeing that as a positive thing. And my conversation with them is always, isn't your first instinct to make sure somebody doesn't get hurt as opposed to videoing it? Trying to bring them back to that emotional side of caring about each other and making sure that each other is safe is such important conversations that we have every single day. The other aspect of it is anything that you have, direct messaging, that becomes something, because you can pull kids into group messages. And the kids will say, well, we have a group message for that. We have a group message for that. And it sounds innocent enough, but so quickly it could come that two people are fighting in there, and then everybody starts adding onto it. And things are said that they're not face to face, so they're more likely to say things that are more hurtful or damaging.
Take cheap shots.
100%.
The keyboard warriors.
Absolutely. Right. And I think, again, we watch a lot of adults do that. I think we see adults doing that as, all the negativity that we see on social media. I like social media to see my friends and their kids and their animals, and I, post pictures of all of those positive things and the exciting things. But there's plenty of kids that are going home to seeing their parents, or if they're friends with them on social media, just attacking each other for beliefs, or, because they're not thinking the same way that they are. It's not the way they think. So I think it's really easy for our kids to respond that same way.
What do you think maybe either parents or especially kids don't realize, that even if something happens outside of school, say on a weekend, and it escalates and spills into school, I mean, kids could get expelled for some of the stuff they're posting.
Absolutely.
And, doing, I should say, outside of school hours, but how does it all come together?
So that's one of the conversations we have with parents often, because many times we have parents that are like, what are you going to do about this? And the first thing I'll say to them is, if it happened outside of school, you have to call the police. If you waited until Monday to tell me, and you feel like your child's being harassed, then it's really important for us to make sure that they're safe first, and that's taken care of. And usually our resource officer, we have a Scranton police officer in our building, and if he had any calls over the weekend, then he lets us know of those items. But yeah, we have this conversation a lot about how it's criminal, and then, if it doesn't take place in school, if it spills in, then it could be like an expellable offense. If it's a direct threat to somebody, or something happens, or to the school, because that happens, we see that too with all of the, the threats that end up to be, nationwide swatting and things like that. Kids don't realize how serious they are until we actually, continue to have it happen and have to continue to have those conversations. It goes in spurts. It goes up and down with those things, with those type of things. But the cyberbullying is a constant, and until there's true ramifications for it, they don't realize.
Do you have a story that sticks out in your mind when, as a principal, that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe I'm navigating this. Here you're trying to make sure kids have, English and math down, but you're like, this is now the big chunk of my day. But just something that jumps out that you're like.
So it is. So I had a student who was actually having like self-infliction thoughts, and posted a video online of it, and it got to us. It's one of the scariest things that you could get as a principal. I don't think people realize that our jobs are 24 hours a day. We would love it not to be, but it gets that way. We have, safe to says that come in, and safe to say is by the state thing that is reportable. The kids can report, parents can report. So we can do, checks in homes, or we can do, like if somebody says they're going to hurt themselves, or there's a threat to somebody, or a host of different things. Sometimes we have to get involved with law enforcement. That's 24 hours a day. This particular video came to me through Safe to Say, and it's the scariest thing in the world that she wasn't in front of me right then at that moment. And then to wait that time out and make contact with the police and family to do a wellness check to make sure that she's okay. I just think it's one of the scariest things that's the way that she felt that she needed to express herself. Now that wasn't, and it was a result of her being, bullied by other kids, and that's how she felt she needed to express it. So we try really hard to make sure that our kids know what their resources are.
What do the conversations look like that you guys are having with parents, and how can parents, guardians, help kind of mitigate that and navigate that?
One of the first things that my assistant principal and I always say to parents is that I know you feel as though it's their phone is their property, or their computer, their laptop, their iPad is their property. Check it. It's not against you're not going against their privacy on this. This is their safety. So it's super important for parents, and to have those conversations with them about what they should be posting or they shouldn't be, or is it age appropriate for them to have that type of social media, or do you know there's messaging on different apps? So we do a lot of educating from our end, and there's something different every day. So we add to our knowledge and pass that along as much as possible. And it's interesting too how usually a situation that's reported to us is almost always going in both directions. So it may be a parent saying, so-and-so is bullying my child, and what are you going to do about it? And then we start to investigate, and it's been going back and forth for a really long time, or they're both saying things to each other, and it's over a disagreement over something that's really not that big of a deal. So when you get down to it, then you have the conversations with kids and parents and saying, really consider, is this that dire, or could you have come to somebody first and we could help you talk it out so it didn't have to get to that extent. So again, it's just a lot of conversations and a lot of trying to educate people on what these things are. Many times parents will say, I didn't even know they had that. And it's just the importance of making sure that you're watching what your kids are doing. And it's not, they're sneaky. They know where things are at. And I ask a lot of questions to kids, and I'll say, well, how'd you get there? What did you do with that? Show me what you did. Or can you help me do this? Because they love to show you the things that they know. Or I'll say, how did you know that? Well, I looked it up on this. Okay, great, show me. Because we have to know what they're using and where they're coming from on it.
How has it changed your work day as a principal? I think back in the day when I was in high school,
right,
our principal would, have to haul people in if, maybe they talked back to the teacher.
Right.
Is now for administrators, principals, is this the biggest chunk of your day now, just constantly dealing with cyberbullying?
It's a large part of it. And again, I hate to go back to COVID because I think we're getting in a better place. But for some reason, when we got back from COVID, just outright disrespect, violence and fighting, cyberbullying, all of that came to the forefront for some reason. I don't know if it's because people were kind of locked down for so long that they forgot how to socially take care of things and how to communicate with each other. But we're getting much better. Almost 3 years in the same building. I have my same assistant principal. We're an awesome team. He's, great part of my day, and we work hard together to combat those things. And the kids know that our non-negotiables are disrespect to each other and adults, cell phones, and dress code, so we're ready for school. We're ready to learn, and we're here to do the right things, and we follow the procedures of the building. But the disrespect for each other and teachers, that's a big one. We had to reteach a lot of that, and that falls into then, the phone use. Again, we try to get their phones out of their hands altogether during school. So we try to combat, if it didn't happen in school and it's not a serious offense, we try not to address it, because we would be doing something with cell phones and cyberbullying all day long if we didn't.
What are some of your colleagues who are principals at other schools, whether it's in PA or other parts of the country, like doing? Are they cutting out cell phones altogether in schools, or like what are you seeing? What's the trend?
So it's interesting, because I know Pennsylvania, there were grants for the little containers to put them in, so each kid gets their own. I think that's something that might be coming to Scranton. I think that was, and it's successful in places that have it. Different
So
states.
it's just a bag you put your phone in?
Right. Yeah, but it's locked for the day. So then you get it, you put it in there at the beginning of the day, and you get it out at the end of the day.
How do you think that would sit with parents who are nervous about school safety?
So I think and that's the hard part. I think building the relationship with parents, that we do everything all day long to make sure your students are safe. We have to go back to, we were in school, we would have a bomb threat, a fire drill, a lockdown drill. Nobody even knew what ever happened, but our parents trusted that we were safe. We have to get back to trusting. Because again, social media, parents will see the kids are outside of Western Intermediate. Why are they out there? Well, there might be something going on, or it may just be a drill. But it's okay to let the teachers and the administrators who care about your kids all day long to follow through and take care of them, and know that we're going to take care of them. Or why didn't we get a one call about that? Well, it was probably because we were making sure that the building and the kids were safe first before we made phone calls. It's a hard thing, because social media is also at an arm's length for parents as well. So all of that gets around really quickly on when things are going on. And again, it could be a simple fire drill, or it could have been a school threat. But we have to try to build that trust with the community again, that we do everything that we can, and we go through the drills that we go through, and all of the education for the kids to make sure that they are safe every day.
I think something interesting you mentioned at the beginning, that sometimes you're trying to diffuse the situation, but parents were already in your office or calling you for something that you guys are trying to still figure out what happened, just because maybe a kid recorded something and posted it.
Yep. It's hard to navigate that, where they're saying, why aren't you calling me back? Or why didn't you do a one call? Or why didn't they post it? Because we do have our own social media also. So we try to keep that up with all the positive things. And if we're doing a lockdown drill, we try to let the community know first, so they know if your kids come home to talk about it, speak to them about it, why we do it. But they also want, instant answers. And that's just not always, sometimes we have to take, here's a perfect example. We had between West High is right down the hill from us. We both had two different situations that were gas smells in the building. Ours was due to construction, and theirs was a legitimate gas leak outside of the building. So we evacuate to each other's buildings. Parents were so upset because we didn't get a one call out right away. We had to walk down the hall, get all of our kids in the auditorium, sitting, making sure everybody's accounted for, and then we put the call out. There's times that we just have to think about student safety and getting everybody out first. Thankfully, both of them were there was no real emergency, but you always have to treat everything like it is.
Yeah. How do you build school spirit while combating cyberbullying?
So I think it's really important for us to we have a school-wide positive behavior team. And it does really work on all levels. It just changes on how you do it. Elementary, you can really get away with, all the fun, cutesy stuff. Our kids love anything where they could dress a little bit out of dress code. So we do a lot of color days. We did green for St. Patrick's Day. We do, on March Madness, we did wear your favorite team or jersey day. And then we do giveaways quarterly. So we pick kids' names out. They can earn. We have star cards at Western Intermediate. So for good behavior, things that they do, they can earn those cards, and we put them in for raffles. We have different events. We do bingos where we do giveaways. We do dances and things. They love anything that they can earn. They love it. So it's positive. We love to also have the high school kids, the band and cheerleaders up. We do at least every Friday at West High during football season. They have the band and cheerleaders outside in the morning while the kids are coming in. So I try to have them down a couple of times to start the day. It's a fun way to start the day. It gets the kids excited. Pep rallies throughout.
Right.
Anything that breaks up the day from just the normal, reading, math, English. They hear a lot of that. We try to keep it positive. We don't like kids to just see us when they're in trouble. We want to be able to get it. We try to get out and talk to kids as much as possible. We're in lunches, knowing kids by name, addressing them, talking to them, asking them how their day is. That's what we try to do to keep our building running in a positive way.
I kind of want to play off of that.
Yeah.
So you are a principal, because I remember when I was there to give the speech, and you're all over the place, and you're interacting with the kids, and we see the principal, right?
Right.
Like the kids actually see the principal coming out. And I know, I mean, you guys have great leadership with Dr. Erin Keating, the superintendent of Scranton School District. And I mean, she's very boots on the ground too. She's getting out there, getting to know the kids. But I would ask you, this is a little fun, you getting to interact with these kids, what are some of like the hip terms they teach you that you like, I had no idea that's what it meant. Like, give me some of the slang you're learning from the kids in 2025.
I have the best one, and it was really just very recently. I have a girl who I interact with often, and she's cute, but she gets herself into some issues. And I said to her, girlfriend, what is going on? And I said, he's bothering me. He's just messy. And I went, oh, messy? How is she? Goes, not messy like dirty, like drama messy, just messy. And I'm like, I'm going to use that at least once a day.
I love
for
that.
Like the rest of my life, messy.
Everybody use that slang in 2025. If somebody has drama, just be like, they're messy.
And they love when you use it back, like, and they'll go, oh, that doesn't even sound right. I said, well, what does it think it sounds like when you say it then? Like, is it meant for us to be used, or is it only used?
Right.
Is there an age stop on what words we can and can't use? So I love to throw them out. The words out.
Any other zingers you got?
So they always say things are sus, like it's suspect. It's like a little off. That's
I have nieces who are like young, and they're always like, that's sus.
Yeah.
One time I was like, sus, so suspect. Got it.
Yeah. They have all different kinds of things. Oh, and they always say, you're corny. And I'm like, I said, I'm straight off the cob. You know that I always told them that anyway. I love being corny.
Okay.
I love to be corny. That's how I make you laugh, and that's how I make you know that I'm not always just serious.
All business all the time.
Absolutely.
I think when we think, having this discussion, I don't want people to take it like, oh, social media is the end of the world. It's not.
No.
It can be used for a lot of great stuff.
Right.
What have you seen, though, in your schools from the positive side of things? Is it kids getting to meet each other on social media and then connecting in the classroom?
So, we really try. Kids love to see themselves doing positive things. So that's one of the things that we've done. And I think all of the schools in Scranton, we've tried really hard to get all the positive things out there. We have 3-on-3 basketball tournaments. We have dodgeball tournaments and dances, and our clubs are out and about doing things. We have a kindness club that does a coffee cart every weekend, and our learning support and autistic support classes are always out doing great things. We had the baby kangaroos in. So we make sure that we get all of that stuff out there. The kids love seeing themselves on there, and they love the positive praise. Our students of the month, and we don't pick just students of the month for academic things. We pick them for qualities that we think are positives, or kids that are making great strides. We try to include as many kids in that as we can. So because they can't really use it in the classroom, teachers do use their like Google Classroom and things like that for as many positive things as possible. We added an intro to technology class that our teachers are doing some really great things with the kids to teach them positive things. They are building their own websites. They're making their own games. So the kids are really liking doing those things because it's different than what they're doing, and it gives them something else to work on when they're on their computers or on their phones. That's different than just being on social media or just, whatever other.
What concerns do you have as an educator around AI? I mean, obviously it can help and do a ton of great things, building lesson plans, helping with course curriculum building for the educator side, but are teachers nervous? Are you seeing younger people get on, say, ChatGPT and cranking out their papers?
Absolutely.
I mean, these kids are smart. They're young, but they're smart.
Absolutely. And so I was a high school teacher for 19 years. So for me, it was always, I was a French teacher. So Google Translate, I used to say to the kids, okay, put it back in now. Because I would know in the first 3 words if they use Google Translate. I think ChatGPT and AI is much more difficult to see that. So I used to tell my kids, put it back in, put your French back in, and see what English comes out. Because it's going to come out, things like read and read, and it just doesn't, it's the wrong context of word and things like that. AI is scary because you can't tell those things. So I think we're going to need to do a whole other education around that, on the positive parts of it and what you can use to enhance your thoughts, but to not steal someone else's work, because plagiarism is still a real thing. And it's really different to learn those things in middle school and high school versus going on to a university setting, which we hope many of our kids do, because that will get you thrown out of college to use those type of things. So again, proper use of it, how to use it in a positive way versus just stealing and somebody else's. We used to call it literary murder is what we used to call it in high school.
Got it.
So it's just really different. But there's so many positive things. There's things I use myself with it now that I go, wow, where was this my
Right.
whole life of making lists?
Because I always say, like,
and s-
AI is not going away. It can definitely add value, add to your life, and
Absolutely.
really speed up a lot of tasks that used to take you a lot of time. So you can focus on
Absolutely.
what you want to focus on. But you mentioned, obviously, college for the next step. You're hoping, obviously, a lot of your
Mm-hmm.
youngsters go in there and pursue, further education. How is the teaching landscape now? I mean, what kind of questions do you get for people saying, Angela, I'm graduating high school. I'm thinking about being a teacher. I'd like to be a principal. Like, it's a different world now. So what kind of response do you give when someone says,
it's
I want to
so-
be a French teacher, Angela, or I want to be a high school principal?
And I do actually have former students of mine that that actually are, many of them that are teachers now. I'm realistic with them, and I always say to them, your heart has to be in it. You have to be a kids first person. You have to really want to do it, because there's a lot of things that get in your way. There's things you can't control that get in your way. You have to be able to roll with the punches. You have to be able to emotionally take that. Not all of these kids go home to homes that we were involved in. That you're going to give a big part of your day to not teaching, but meeting needs of kids and making sure they have what they need, or forming relationships with them so they can learn and to get past the points of things that are not great in their lives, or things that are troubling them, because even good kids have issues. There's days that you look at your classroom and you can see that things are just not, and you have to go, okay, time out, what's going on? And then figure it out, so then the learning can go on. If kids' needs aren't met first, it's not as easy for them to stop and learn. We can't just say, okay, at school you have to do this now, when they go home and there's not enough food at home, or one of their parents is incarcerated, or there's a lot of things that we deal with in a day that you go, whew. There's at least one or two things a day that my assistant principal and I look at each other and go, well, we did not learn that in principal school. This is just something that I never thought I was going to deal with.
How tough is that for you, being a principal? And you can control so much when they're in school. You can make sure they have food, they have water to drink. How tough is it knowing that some of those kids go home and you worry about food insecurity?
Absolutely. When they leave us at night, and we know the kids who are constantly, we think, we're pretty sure that they're just eating when they come to school, and they may not eat again until Monday morning, until they get to school the next day, because we have breakfast and lunch. They're hard conversations to also have when we know what's happening, and calling families and saying, we're just calling to see, do you need anything? And to not, you don't ever want to make anybody feel like they're doing something wrong, or to come from a place of helping them. But it's a delicate balance. It's a hard thing to do. But when they leave at the end of the day, or that they're not in a super, not a super safe situation, but like that they don't go home to a lot of, even somebody there, maybe a parent that is working, or they're not there with them at night. It's scary to leave them. I know they're taken care of when they're in front of us, so there's a lot of thought that goes into that throughout. There's some kids that stick with you. There's situations that happen during the day, or situations that are reportable on our end that that they're not prime when they go home to their houses, but it weighs on you, and that's not an easy part of it. It's not an easy thing to let go, but again, that's why I went into this job, because I care a lot about kids and their families, and I want to make sure that if I can help, that we do. And when we can't, sometimes it's going to feel left, unfinished, but we do the best that we can to make sure that that's the case. So it weighs heavily sometimes.
Where do you think education's heading?
I don't know. I think it's going to be
From the
interesting.
elementary to the middle to the high school.
It's just so very different. One of the things one of our big initiatives in Scranton is structured literacy. There's just so much science behind reading, and when kids are reading well by third grade, that their success rates and in the rest of their schooling. We're working really hard to start there. But we also have many kids that are reading below grade level, and have 5th through 8th grade. So we also have to meet them where they're at and see what we can do to help them along as much as we can. There's a lot of intervention going on right now for learning gaps from COVID, which now we're starting to see some differences in those things. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how education changes. There's a lot of different aspects that we don't have control over. We do the best that we can in a school building with what we have. Fair funding is being talked about in Pennsylvania all the time. There's districts that are extremely underfunded, Scranton being one of them, and they're working on that. So I'm hoping that we continue to see those things. I hope the federal cuts don't affect us. We won't know that yet, though. So it really doesn't matter. I've been in funded schools, I've been in underfunded schools, and what teachers and administrators do in those buildings doesn't change. We take care of our kids, whether we have the money to have the bells and whistles of all the things we have to do. If there's something that educators do, they make it work for kids. And I know I have a building full of people who do that. So so it's changing. There's going to be some things we can control and some things we can't, but taking care of kids and giving them the best education we can is...
Yeah, that priority is never changing.
Always. That's always it. Take care of them.
So at West Scranton Intermediate, the grade levels are what?
5 through 8.
5 through 8. When those students leave your school, what's one thing you hope they take with them into high school? Something you impart, your faculty imparts, what is it?
So I'm pretty positive that if you asked any of them, they'll tell you, especially my kids that I deal with on a daily basis, I always tell them I want you to leave me better than you came to me, that you learned something, that you just are a better person in general, that you grew, that you learned more, and that you're one day going to come back to me and tell me all the great things that you're doing, because they have so many things to offer. And in 24 years, I've had so many great times that's happened to me, because kids just really, they need somebody to encourage them and be there's a great saying about every kid needs a champion, somebody behind them that's cheering them along. Every kid needs that. Every kid needs positivity, because not everyone goes home to that. So for me, I want the hours that they spend with us to be the best parts of their day, so it lasts through to anything that they might be dealing with outside of there. So.
And any students stand out to you? I mean, I'm sure a million of them, but one that you saw face such hardships, whether it was when you were a French teacher, and now you look at them and you're like, holy heck.
Yeah,
you.
I've had so many of them. I've been in a lot of high poverty districts, so where I taught, and now in Scranton, and I have doctors and lawyers and electricians, and that they're just doing so well because they never gave up. It would have been really easy for them to do those things, and it's so great to see them. And they're so excited to tell you, even when I see kids that are 30 and they're like, oh, I remember this. I remember this. And Frenchies for Life was always my thing with my high school French kids. And they're like, your class is where, like, I knew I was good there. I knew I was safe there. And that means a lot to me, because that's all I ever wanted it to be. They may not be, parlez-vous français all over the place, but they're absolutely, they're good human beings, and they're kind to people, and they worked hard to get where they're at, and that's all anybody could ever ask for.
And for you, I'm sure that's probably reiterates the point of, this is why I do what I do.
100%. 100%. And you asked before about being a principal, and I was really nervous about going into that originally, because, and I had my degree pretty early on, because I built relationships, and I had my kids for 3 and 4 years in a row when I taught French, and I was able to do something that I felt like was so helpful to them, and I didn't know how that was going to translate as a principal. And the difference for me now, I see, is that I can also do that with young teachers and a staff, and make it a great environment from the top down, as opposed to just from my classroom. And I think that's really important. I think the positivity that anybody brings to something, and the encouragement, is what makes people rally around your goal together. So I think I'm able to build relationships with the adults and the kids in the buildings the same way, so we have a great environment for our kids. So it did translate into a little bit different than what I had anticipated originally. It was important for me to stay in the classroom. My best administrators were ones that were in the classroom for a long time, so they kind of get what it's like when teachers are struggling. And that with tough kids, and that you can definitely say, I know what that's like, but it's okay, and we're going to get through it, and let's work through it, and we do. So I feel like that's a big part for me.
And I have to say, I still think teachers don't get the credit and the pay they deserve.
No, definitely not.
And I definitely think, you touched on COVID, right? I remember that's where I think people realize, like, holy heck, teachers should be paid $1 billion a year, right? When people at home, I mean, like, and I get it. Parents are working jobs, but then they're also educating their kids. And I remember the memes, right? It was like, teachers should make $1 million a school year, right?
And teachers went into that. I actually went into administration in February of that year, and March COVID hit. So I learned a whole new realm of things that I had no idea was ever going to come. Teachers learned technology. and how to get lessons out to kids and things out to kids and how to continue to encourage them to do things in ways that nobody ever thought was possible, and they did it. But you're absolutely right. But yeah, parents, it was a little short-lived with that, but they definitely went, wow, I don't know how you do this all day, every day.
Yeah.
And it's true. There's a lot of great parts of it, but there's a lot of hard work and dedication that goes along with it, for sure.
Any final thoughts? I mean, we tackled a lot.
We did. We went through
I mean,
a
I
lot
think
of things.
it is, cyberbullying, right? Social can be used for the good, which you're seeing it, but
Yep.
also, cyberbullying has been like next level compared to what you saw even years ago.
Yep.
And I think, as you mentioned, it's about having the conversations, not only in the school, but having parents have those conversations with their kids.
And I don't think that that's changed in parenting in general. People who have great communication with their kids have great, well-rounded kids. Where we have the biggest problems is where that's not taking place, right? So it's the same conversations that I think, sitting down with your kids and having conversations about their day in general is helpful, because we can combat a lot of those things during those conversations, and just making sure that they're doing safe things. You'd want them to do safe things with not on their phones. You wouldn't want them to walk out in the middle of the street. You want to teach them how to look both ways before crossing the street. You want to do the same thing with making sure that what they have in their hands and what they have access to is safe.
All right.
Yeah.
I think we tackled a lot.
We did, absolutely.
I love chatting with you because I
You
can
too.
feel the passion and the drive you have. And seeing you in action when I visited your school, I was like, she gets it. She
Thank
gets
you.
it.
Well, I'm so glad to be here. I was excited.
And hearing that, like, some of your former students, right, when you were their French teacher, now doctors, lawyers, electricians, as you mentioned, are talking. You must have started teaching when you were like 8 years old.
21.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
I know. I can't believe it's been that long already.
No, eye-opening and, a timely topic. So Angela Keating, West Scranton Intermediate, the principal. And I always remember how to spell principal because the principal's your pal.
Yes, that's how
all.
I say it every time I type it. Yes.
I love that. All right, thanks so much. And
All
thank
right,
you for
thank
being a part of another episode of The Ryan Leckey Show. See you next time.
Here we go, buddy.